Good evening. Good evening. Please bear me with me. Today I will be speaking little slowly. I'm suffering from bad throat. So let us start from the recap what we were doing last time. And then we will continue on it. Please bear with me. Today I have a bad throat. So maybe I will be talking little slowly and bear with my voice quality. So I think let us start with little primer, what we were doing last time. So basically, we have started with the nature of the research process, where we have seen the characteristics of research, like it should be systematic, empirical, replicable, and it should minimize the bias through rigorous methods, as well as it should be purposeful. And then we have gone and we have tried understanding what are the 6 P's of the research. Out of that, we have already completed the purpose, product, and we are into now the process, participants, paradigms, and so on. So let me just go with it hurriedly. Like we have seen that the purpose without the research without a purpose is won't be a good research. And why at all? Because it serves us that there can be many reasons, and to fulfill or to find out the answers to the problems, we always try to find out the research. Sometimes we have an interest of our own, and or maybe our organizational interest is there, or our personal interest is there, and that's why we try to find out to do the research. And sometimes it may be useful to the community or the society, and that is the reason what you would like to have. And maybe for your doctoral studies to complete, it is a mandatory requirement, so that also becomes the purpose of the research. And then we have seen various example purposes of research, like for example, to discover the new knowledge, to validate or test the existing theories, to solve the business or the managerial problems, to forecast or predict the future trends, and to basically facilitate the decision making. Having said about this, we have seen that even in the business context also, we have different um, objectives or purposes in order to do the research. Like, for example, a real world business challenge is there, and you would like to provide the answer for that. Then, understanding in your own field, if I do some processes using AI or Gen AI, how they are going to work on it, then to develop the new product or services or the processes. So that becomes the innovation. Similarly, if there can be some system assumptions, or there can be some assumptions while carrying out certain processes, or certain propositions, or the hypothesis which we will be making it. So that becomes validating or testing your own assumptions or claims, and that is how it is going to be. And lastly, even for the strategic decision making also, because it is basically informing the evidence based choices. And that's why for strategic decision making also, we are going to maybe this is going to develop this is going to help in developing different frameworks under the big umbrella of AI. Then we have seen the different categories of the research purposes in business context, ranging from logistic company to a financial service firm. How our different objectives in the business context are going to be fulfilled. One was the problem solving. So when you are going to do the from problem to the result, from problem of rising fuel cost and the delays to the result, reduced fuel and the improved deliveries. Then for the knowledge creation also, from the research studies, like for the financial firm who is working on millennial economic uncertainty, that can be their research study. And then they can come out with the outcome, that publishing the findings and the thought leadership for a company. Then I have just the very current examples of the pharmaceutical companies, R&D department. So the innovation, developing new products, services, or processes, then validation, testing, assumptions, and hypothesis. Then when it comes to the strategic decision making, you can work on the any example, global beverage company. which is going to study the consumer preferences, supply chain logistics, then regulatory environments, and the competitive landscape also. And that is how they can target different countries in order to launch their beverages. And that is how it is going to be. Then we have seen the two examples, actual examples of the implementations. Generally, the chatbot is been created for certain kind of services. For example, a financial services, a company which wants to implement a Gen AI chatbot for customer services, then what can be the purposes which can be demonstrated? If there are going to be certain kind of questions which are going to be arising, then the chat GPT, use of chat GPT in enterprise software development, like for example, Microsoft's integration of GPT into the GitHub Copilot, and that is how it is going to be. So, having said about this, the DBA application is basically your research might examine similar implementations in across different industries, contributing to the theories, concepts, processes while solving your practical problem. So, as we have said, DBA is for the practical research, and hence there can be some products or the outcomes of the research which are called as products. This we have seen last time elaborately. I don't spend the time. Like it can be the new theory, new framework, or a reinterpretation of an existing theory, or the new improved model or perspective, unanticipated outcomes. Then you will like to do the critical analysis of whether AI implementation is possible or not in MSMEs or SMEs. Uh, that also it can be. Then in-depth situational study, then exploration of topic area field, and you can come out with a new research tool or techniques that can also be the products. Having said about this, this also we have like outcomes or the presentation of your um, research can be something like this. So this also we have seen. Then we have come to the fourth P of the real six P's out of six P's, and which is the participants. Now, many times it happens that there are some direct participants who are going to participate in your research, and there can be some indirect participants. What are the direct participants? Direct participants will be the participants which will be involved in your research. Like, for example, if you are doing a research in collaboration, or if you are doing some project which is where you would like to have the association with certain kind of hospitals or certain kind of organizations or HR industry or any kind of industry, then they become your direct or the primary participants. So those people or the participants will be directly giving you the primary data source, and you can generate the data from it, and that is how it is going to be. Side by side there can be some indirectly, there will be some participants which are being involved. Now here indirectly means there can be some people who are getting affected, like for example, if there is any the bridge development kind of activity, then environmental people, or there can be some people who are residing in this area, they become the indirect affecting participants, and that is how. So there can be some stakeholders which are not directly connected to your research, but they can be the indirect affected people who are going to be there, and that is how there can be some indirect people who are going to involve, and that is how. Like for example, if I am going to work for a bank while creating a framework for the credit evaluation model, then the persons who are applying for a loan in a bank, they become the direct participants. But because of that, so the people uh, um, uh, for the cause or for the purpose for which they will be taking the loan in order to fulfill, they become the indirect participant. So generally indirect participation or indirect participation can be either positive or can be negative. So obviously there are going to be the legal and the ethical consideration whenever it comes to the indirect participation. Having said about this, one can see that whenever you are going to take certain kind of responses from the direct participants, then it should be an informed consent. So when you will start interviewing people or taking the survey, at that time you will have to take the you will have to in the first meeting itself you have to make it clear that you are going to ask the question so and so, and it won't be there targeting their any personal preferences or personal life and so on. So the privacy and the confidentiality will also be maintained, and you will make it clear that any point of time if you feel, you can always withdraw from the, generally we don't encourage, but then still you have to um, uh, give them that kind of opportunity also. Having said about this, then there can be some legal implications, or from the research point of view, you can basically declare, or one has to take the permission from the board. Like, for example, institutional review board is there for every university or every academic institutions who are offering the research degrees. So generally, they give the uh, certain kind of permissions, and that is how it is going to be there. So having said about this, one can say that these are basically the indirect participants. Coming to the indirect participants, so after doing the participants, I said that there are two more P's are remaining. One is basically the paradigm, and the last is basically the presentation. Presentation, I did not say anything on that because everybody knows that how to present the research and so on, of course. But then we will be certainly having one some pointers when it comes to presenting your dissertation, what you are supposed to. Because in communication class, we have seen when I spoke before you for the research communication that when it is a book, how you are supposed to present, when it is a business plan, how you are supposed to present, and if it is a dissertation, every outcome has its own um, protocols that you will have to follow. So having said about this, now let us start with the next P, that is called as a paradigm. Now when it comes as that is come as the process. So this is basically the fourth P of the process of 6 P's of research. And here it is quite, the diagram itself, it is clear that a proper process has to be followed. In our second half, we will be seeing various components and the elements of the systematic and rigorous and this iterative journey. But the how of the research is always indicated by the process. Like, for example, you will be designing certain kind of sequential activities, and through which you will be drawing the structural roadmap. And then, when you will start with this process, then the first and the foremost comes is basically the identifying one or more research topics. Once you identify, then, or once you focus or decide that which is the problem which I am going to tackle, then you can go for establishing a conceptual framework. Now, in the process, it may happen that while drawing the conceptual design or framework, you may feel that, oh, I have to, though I have taken this problem, I may have to consider it in a slightly different manner, or I am targeting a very ambitious objective or the problem. I may have to break down that problem into various sub problems, and I will be able to target only one or two sub problems in my stipulated time of doctoral research. Then comes is the selection and the use of research strategies. Now, in research strategies, we will be having formulating the research questions or research objectives and the hypothesis as well. So today we will be trying to see what will be the research, how to formulate the research questions, or how research objectives becomes the objective of the your research while addressing the research questions. So in the research strategy also, we have the whether you will be using which type of methodology, whether you will be using the quantitative data or qualitative data. And if you are going to have the research approach, then how you are going to go about it, whether it is going to be a mixed method, because it may happen some of the data is qualitative, some of the data is quantitative, then you may have to sort to the mixed method strategies, and that is how you can give. Even the data generation strategies are also sometimes you have to employ. Like for example, when you are taking interviews, when you are taking surveys, then you have to employ certain kind of strategies. Having done that, then you come to the analysis part. And the analysis of data and the drawing of conclusions is going to be happening again to the next of once you have the selection and the use of research strategy and the data generation methods. Once you are doing this, then drawing your research findings. Um, and from those research findings, drawing the conclusions, giving the recommendations, or benchmarking your work, and so on. That becomes the next step. And lastly, you can recognize the limitation or the realization of your research happens at this last stage, and suddenly you come to know that okay, though I am trying to propose frameworks, out of five frameworks I may be able to complete, or I may be able to give the justice to only first three frameworks, and then you have to go about it. So this is what the process is about. Having said about the process, then comes in the list is basically the paradigms, how it is going to be. So, first of all, when it comes to the fifth P, which is going to be paradigm. Paradigm is slightly philosophical. Why I'm saying philosophical? It is basically preparing yourself for that research mindset, and that is how you are going to go about it. Because it is a slightly philosophical in nature, I have already said that even for the normal universities, they give the degree Doctor of Philosophy in particular subject, or in computer science, in IT, or in physics, in mathematics, in chemistry, biology, whatever it is. But then the nomenclature of the degree becomes Doctor of Philosophy. So here, though we are calling it as a practitioner degree, that Doctor of Business Administration in emerging technology with concentration in Gen AI, it will have the philosophy also. And if in the beginning itself, if you come to know indirectly what will be the approach or what will be the paradigm which you will be using it, it will be very helpful. Let us see first of all what is going to be, what is a paradigm. So what is a paradigm? If you see carefully, basically it is going to be the fifth P aspect. So when it comes to the research paradigm, you are trying to understand what is basically the core philosophy and the fundamental belief of the topic or the domain which you have considered. Basically, we are talking about the ism. Ism means whenever we are trying to look at certain kind of concepts in a philosophical manner, we talk about the isms. So, having said about this, like this basically, the paradigm is basically this core philosophy and fundamental belief is basically the label which we give it to the coherent worldwide what you can say method or philosophy formed by combining different types of isms. Like for example, now those isms they have different components. Like for example, they consider what kind of ontology we are going to see it. What is the specific ontology or what is the epistemology also in detail also. Because if it is philosophically, if it is clear to you, then expanding on your topic or theoretization of your topic or narrative style in order to develop the narrative style or directly targeting the business kind of context, whatever the thinking process, whatever the research mindset, it will be clear to you. So basically, it is going to be a philosophy. So it is basically the grand theory which is going to guide the researcher's overall approach. And as I said, this is the ism that can summarize the stance or the stand which you are going to take up in your research. So basically, as I said, the core philosophy is good philosophy and a fundamental belief which really contribute to the paradigm is going to be constructed or is going to be collectively brought together by different kind of isms. So when it comes to the bringing all those isms or particularly following certain kind of ism, there are certain characteristics of the paradigm, because generally when we say it is a paradigm shift, what we look for is we look for a new way of thinking. You are going to put up a certain kind of novelty, a certain kind of new beginning or new eye for your research. So basically, when we talk about the paradigm shift, it is going to be like that. And when it comes to the research paradigms, as I have already said, it is basically a core philosophy or the fundamental belief system which is being formulated. Because as I said, I always say that you people are the experience experiential learners or the practitioner scholars, and working in certain kind of industry or the organization, you have already formulated certain kind of beliefs or certain kind of notions yourself, and that is how that is going to percolate in your research as well. So how you can combine those intuitive knowledge or intuitive expressions in your research with the core philosophies and the belief system. That is how it is going to be. So, if your research paradigm is fixed, then it will have the influence on how which type of research questions you are going to consider or which type of methodology you will go with it and how you are going to interpret the findings. As I said, if certain kind of research is going to address the one particular problem in behavioral sciences, then we will be talking about or presenting the interpretation or findings in that particular manner. Similarly, if I'm constructing for the medical sciences, then I will be speaking or I will be presenting whatever my work research in that perspective, and that is how it is going to be there. As I said, there are different types of paradigms are there. One is called as the positivism, then interpretivism, critical research, and the pragmatism. So we are going to see one by one what exactly they mean. But initially, as I said, all these isms are going to follow certain kind of characteristics. So what are those characteristics? So besides having their own core philosophy and belief, they will be having certain kind of characteristics. What are going to be those characteristics that we are going to see? So basically, the first one is the ontology. Okay, so what is ontology means? Ontology is basically the nature of reality which you are going to address. So here, basically, it gives you the starting point and the most abstract layer of the nature. So, what is the nature of existence and so on? So, as I said, it is going to be slightly philosophical. I know it is. So, basically, when we talk about the realism, basically, what we are going to see is what are the beliefs. Like, for example, in realism, how we are going to have is the our we have only single objective. Okay, we don't have too many objectives. We will have a single objective. Reality exists independently of the human perception. Like there are certain ideas, there are certain notions, there are concepts which are being already defined uh, um, historically or year after year, and they are not going to change their meanings. And therefore, it becomes the realism that it is the single objective reality which is going to exist. Now, here, when you are going to talk about the paradigms or the ontology behind every paradigm, at that time we will learn that it will try to present, or it will try to discover or measure and report what is the objectivity in your research, without influencing, without any bias, without any pressure, without any dominance, without any impact of any other theory. And that is how it will be. So when it comes to the when they the belief is basically, so here when we are talking about the relativism or the constructivism, basically the notion is belief, like how, so my idea of beauty, or my idea of honesty, and you people's idea of beauty and honesty, it is going to change, right? Maybe I am working for certain kind of observation, or I may have certain kind of upbringing, and through that have already created certain kind of belief system within me, and that is how I am going to look at all those notions. So here basically one can see that when it comes to the relativism, it is not realism. So relativism or the constructionism is going to be different from reality, because here reality is socially constructed, as I said, or there can be multiple realities which are going to exist in people's mind based on their, as I said, experience, culture, upbringing, interactions, and so on. So that is how it is going to be. So basically, when it comes to the relativism or the constructionism, we will be mostly applying it into a interpretivism, or when it comes to the realism, we are going to apply it to the positivism. So slowly we will be able to check that. So when it comes to the ontology, we are going to see the underlying nature of the reality which is going to exist in that particular paradigm. Having said about this, the second characteristic is basically the epistemology. What is epistemology? The theory of knowledge. So once you decide that what reality is there, or whether it is an objective or a single objective reality, you need to decide basically how you are going to know about it. And in that quest of knowing what is there inside that single objective, or the notion of that single objective, epistemology helps us. So here basically epistemology asks that what counts as very valid knowledge and how we can acquire it, and that is how it is going to go about it. So basically epistemology, what it does, it is going to define the relationship between the knower, who is the knower, the researcher, and the known. So what is the known entity? A known entity is the subject of research which you are going to um, take up. So here basically in epistemology, basically there are certain key concepts and the spectrum we are going to consider. So generally people always fight over the objectivism and the subjectivism, because as I said, I have given you the example, like for example, warm or hot and so on. So my idea of tea being hot or tea being warm or tea being cold will vary from your, because you have your own preferences, you have your own choices, and so there are certain kind of things which we see differently, or it depends upon the person to person. Now objectivism is basically, here the belief is in epistemology, because reality is external and objective, because ontological realism is there. So whatever it is irrespective of the context, irrespective of whatever the concepts which you are going to consider, reality will exist. That is what ontology says. So because reality is external and objective, knowledge must be always acquired through detached and the value free observation. So my purpose of telling you this is basically, when you are going to do the research, it should be unbiased. As I said, over the period or over the decades, when we are working for certain kind of organization, or when we are experiencing certain kind of situations or scenarios, we develop our own observations and our own knowledge, or our own belief system, and that is how it may affect sometimes in our research. The researcher must remain independent of the subject to avoid contaminating the data with their own bias. So when you will be trying to collect the data or taking the interviews, again we are going to see over there also, or when you are going to take the survey, that who should be my respondent. Even the choice of the respondent also has got to do something with the belief system, that I'm not going to take the interviews or the surveys through from these people, because they may give the weird answers, and they may deviate my research and so on. So yes, there are implications for research over here. Why? Because valid knowledge generally comes from the measurable facts and the statistical evidence and the replicable experimentations. So here, basically, again, objectivism, we have seen it is directly connected to the positivistic or positivism, and that is how it is going to be. When it comes to the subjectivism or the constructionism, I have already given you the example. So here, because so we have already seen that. So having said about this, now let us go towards the last characteristic. What is the last characteristic? Is in every research, when we are doing some practical research or practically oriented or applicable research for that reason, then you need certain kind of practical bridge. What is that practical bridge? Is basically the assumptions, because assumptions are basically going to connect your philosophy, core beliefs and paradigms to the concrete methodology or the concrete strategies and so on. So, if you are talking about the practical tools and studies, then naturally there will be some assumptions which are going to sit between your abstract philosophy and the methodology. So, here basically positivism paradigm path. I have just given the examples. Like when you are choosing the positive paradigm path, then you have to measure quantitatively, or the explanation or prediction and the generalization is going to serve for a wider population and so on. So these are basically, you will be basically governed by the mm, laws or discoverable laws and so on, and then it will be helping you to eliminate the bias. So here, all the time in the world, we have to remember that to eliminate the bias, researcher must remain independent, and it should be totally or solely focused on that research domain, or whatever the elements which are going to be considered. Yeah, this is how so it is going to be, it will be. So interpretivism is going to be the paradigm path, and that is how it is going to be there. So now let us consider the types of research paradigms or isms. So the first one is the positivism. So what is the core philosophy and fundamental belief of positivism? Objective reality and scientific methods. So it assumes that there is an objective reality that exists independently of the human perception, and this reality can be measured, observed, and understood through systematic scientific methods. So that is how it is going to be in positivism. Now, what will be the ontology? Ontology, we have said that in positivism, what we are going to see is that reality exists independently of human consciousness, that it is there. Whether you agree or non-agree, it is going to be there. Then what will be the theory of knowledge? That only knowledge confirmed by the senses can be warranted as true knowledge. So whatever the knowledge comes to us, or whatever the knowledge which is being confirmed by the senses. What is the meaning of senses? Is basically whatever your inner uh, mind, or whatever your philosophically, or how you are going to accept it. So whatever you, I mean, we normally say the ultimate knowledge or the only knowledge which has been confirmed by the, this is slightly like in spirituality, we always see that the only knowledge confirmed by the senses can be warranted as true knowledge. So this is what the ontology when it comes to the positivism, that reality exists independently of human consciousness. Here, only knowledge confirmed by the senses can be warranted as true knowledge. You are not going to accept as any knowledge as the true knowledge. And what are the assumptions? Assumptions in this positivism is reality is external and it is going to be objective. Then knowledge is based on observable, measurable phenomena. So researchers should remain detached and neutral. Then there can be the science behind it should be value free, and the focus should be on the causes, what has caused or the causality and the fundamental laws. And your research aim is to explain and predict something. So as I said, I have already said that what are the characteristics of the positivism or positivistic research. So basically, here we are trying to make use of quantitative method, and we will be dealing with the large sample sizes. I have tried to put it in a very one slide presentation. There are much more to it because we are not going to go into the details. But then, as I said, if you are writing a book or when you are writing a dissertation or even for that reason, the business plan, then there has to be certain kind of mindset, or there can be certain kind of maturity level should we have, and that is how we are going to go about it. Then there can be some hypothesis testing. So when it comes to the book, you may be calling, instead of hypothesis, you may be calling prepositions, or in business plan you may be saying that it is our achievable questions or whatever it is going to be. Then there can be the objective measurement, which I have already said that using these standardized instruments, the objectives are measurable. Then you can have the statistical validations. There you can replicable, rather the replicability is a good standard when it comes to the positivistic, and there can be some deductive reasoning. So here basically there is a theory, then you are going to construct the hypothesis, and then you are going to test it. So basically this is what the positivism is there. And so now you must have started thinking that whether in reality is it possible to go with this approach. Because having said that there has an absolute um, core philosophy and the fundamental belief of objective reality, it may not be like when we are working on the practical problems. Many times, rather most of the situations, we may not be able to go with the positivism alone, and so on. So answer to that is given by the interpretivism. What is interpretivism? So here, let me just repeat. Here, what is the core philosophy and fundamental? That the objective reality, I have already given you the characteristics also. And it is going to be existing independently of human perception. Then only knowledge confirmed by the senses can be warranted as true knowledge. And the realism we have already seen. Now, as I said, that when we are working on the practical applications or practical problems or applicable theories or applicable problems, it may not be uh, fully in full respect. It is not, we won't be able to accept positivism. Now, what is interpretivism? Interpretivism is basically you are trying to understand the subjective reality. So here, basically, what is the nature of reality? Nature of reality is relativism. Okay, that multiple realities exist, and they are being constructed by individuals and the groups. So basically, it's ontology when it comes to the interpretivism is basically the relativism. Okay, so it is not the absolute one, which we have studied in, which we have seen in positivism. Now, secondly, it is the epistemology. What is epistemology? Epistemology in positivism says that the only knowledge which is acceptable by the senses is going to be the true knowledge. Here, what is the notion? Knowledge is gained through understanding subjective meaning and the interpretation. So now you will be able to see the difference between the positivism and the interpretivism. So here assumptions are basically reality is multiple, subjective, and socially constructed. That is what it is there. So it is a very practical approach, and that is how the interpretivism came into existence. Because only pure or the fundamental researchers can follow the positivism. Like, for example, if there is going to be a certain kind of political thought, or there can be some thinkers, philosophical thinkers, and so on, then they can follow the positivistic approach. Or, as I said, there can be some spiritual kind of research and so on. So they won't here when we are going towards the practicality, we have to go one step ahead, or we have to go one step by step, slightly away from the positivism. So here in assumptions, what it is, the knowledge is created through understanding the different meanings. Why? Because as the context changes, the meanings are also going to change. So here the assumption is knowledge is created through understanding. Then the researcher is inseparable from research. So in positivism, what we were thinking, that you are supposed to detach as a researcher, you are supposed to detach from the research. Here, researcher is itself is the it is going to be immersed, or it is inseparable from the research. And here, as I said above, also the context is very important, because context is for understanding purpose. We generally require the context, and context is extremely essential. So here the entire focus is on understanding rather than explaining, and the research aims to interpret and understand. So generally in scientific research, or whenever there are some inventions are going on, or there are certain kind of um, laboratory or the wet lab kind of work are going on, then they would like to go towards the interpretivism. So here, as I said, what are the characteristics of the interpretive research? They are going to make use of the qualitative methods. Remember, in positivities, we have seen that there is going to be the quantitative method. Then the samples, instead of taking large samples, here we can afford to take the small or the purposive samples. Why? Because in qualitative approaches, we go towards the non-probabilistic sampling, and because of that, we are going to choose about it. Then the research design basically is emerging through the grounding theories as we proceed or as we continue with the research. So it has its own rich and thick descriptions are there. There has to be a context is crucial. So contextual understanding is extremely important. Then the researcher reflexivity is also going to be important. Generally, because as I said, in scientific research, we go from the data to patterns to the theory. So basically, here the theory is going to emerge from the multiple realities, and which are going to be constructed or the observed by the individuals and the group. So it is going to explore the subjective experiences and the meaning. There are certain limitations also when it comes to the AI and the Gen AI research. Why? Because when we are doing the AI or the Gen AI research, then the generalizability, that is, findings may not transfer to other context. Because, as I said, when I am going to perform certain kind of experiment or certain kind of a scientific um, experiment, then it will be pertaining to the specific example or a specific criteria, and that is how it is going to be there. So because of the subjectivity, the researcher interpretation is going to influence the findings. Because obviously, researcher says that because it has the researcher has understood the subjective reality, and because of that, the researcher interpretation is going to influence the findings. Then it is going to be time intensive. Why? Because when it comes to the qualitative research, you have to basically see within the lines, beyond the lines. And when it comes to reading between the lines and the beyond the lines, obviously there has to be a deep research, which is going to be which requires. And when it comes to the deep research, basically it requires a greater time, as well as the even the cost wise also, it sometimes it becomes very uh, costly affair. Then the business skepticism, that it may be seen as less scientific by the stakeholders. Like, no, it is not going to be there. So when it comes to AI and Gen AI, because it is going to be a newly budding, because there are still some things are yet to prove, or yet to test, or yet to validate, or the reliability is not being tested. So maybe there can be the skepticism which is going to come from the business people. Then there is a difficulty measuring the return on investment kind of criteria. Why at all? Because it is hard to quantify the business impact when it comes to the interpretivism. So these are seeing after seeing the all shortcomings of the interpretivism. Let us try to understand the third ism, that is what is called as uh, c- critical research. So what is the critical research? Basically, critical research, actually, I have separated the pragmatism from the critical research, because what is the reason? It will be clear to you in the next slide. So basically, certain kind of researchers, they always see that either critical theory or pragmatism. To me, critical research is different from the pragmatism. Why it is? Because basically, in critical research, we challenge the power or the transforming reality. So, what is core philosophy is over here? See, try to recollect. In positivism, reality was objective. In interpretivism, reality is subjective. Here, what is the core philosophy? Research should not just understand or explain the reality, but actively challenge and transform the inequitable power structures, assumptions, and practices. Like, for example, the research in economics. Now, so here basically, now you will see how it is different from the earlier two isms. Okay, so what is basically the ontology? Ontology is historical realism, or the reality is exist. That is basically the reality is shaped by the historical, social, and the political forces. Because when you are going to do that, then you will get the strength to challenge the power, and because of that they are thinking. So all those revolutions which have been over here in the past, or whatever the fighters who have been fighting for the some certain kind of cause, they were doing the critical research throughout their life. That is how they have gained to challenge the power. So here, what are the epistemology? Knowledge is shaped by power relations. Uncovering these is essential. So again, you will be able to see that critical research may not be applicable for our DBA research, because in practicality, in whether it is going to be business plan or book, we will be trying to write, or we are going to take a balance approach, because we have to balance between earlier. We have seen that the academic rigor and the managerial implications, or practically how we can balance between the two, that we have to check it. So even for this reason, critical research will also be taking a back seat when it comes to the DBA. Because, as I have said, it has its own perspective, or it has its own requirements. Like, for example, you may have to focus on marginalized perspective, or you may have to examine the structural inequalities, or it may be the action oriented, or you may be reflexive about the power and emancipatory goals also, and so on. So here basically we are going to do it. So there are certain limitations. Why limitations? Because there has to be some political stance or advocacy, and there is going to be complexity, because everybody may not be agreeable, or may not be agreeing to your thought process or your way of looking at things. People may have the different perspective of looking. So here, basically, the research may not be practical oriented or applicable. So again, as I said, that there can be some ambiguity, there can be complexity, or there can be some pushback when it comes to the institutionalization, and naturally it is going to be very resource intensive. Now the last comes. So you have seen the positivism, interpretivism, and you have seen the critical research also. Now we are trying to see that what exactly is the pragmatism. So, what is pragmatism? It is the true practical application and usefulness. So, that is the reason always people say that when you are doing a doctoral program in business administration, or certain kind of digital leadership, or any kind of those kind of applicable or practically oriented research, generally you go for the pragmatism. So, here, what is the core philosophy? Core philosophy is what matters is what works. So it is applicable to both, whether you are writing, you are doing the dissertation, or whether you are doing or whether it is going to be the business plan. Like, for example, as I said, having said about this core philosophy, what is the ontology? What is the nature of reality? That external world exists. You cannot differentiate. Reality is not objective and external. So it is totally different from the positivism. Have you realized that how we have migrated from the concept of the nature of reality, nature of knowledge, from positivism, interpretivism, critical research, and the pragmatism. So here, what is the nature of reality? It is constructed through experiences. Why at all? Because it is going to matter when it is going to be, when I am going to solve certain kind of problem. And what is the nature of knowledge? Nature of knowledge is going to be provisional. It can be contextual. It can be action oriented. So when you are trying to conduct field visits, or when you are trying to conduct the surveys, or when you are trying to conduct the interviews, then basically it is action oriented, because one type of research is called as the action research. Because when it comes to the action research, you have to do all those kind of activities, because there can be some multiple useful perspective which you will be putting together. So you will try to bring in different aspects from different people, different organizations, different theories, and putting it together, and it is going to be validated by the practical consequences. So here the thrust is on solving or cracking the real life problem. So here basically the entire thrust or the treatment depends upon the logic, theory, and how you can crack or how you can opine on the abstract concept. And that is how it is going to be. So how the role of values are going to change? Here the values are central and explicit. Transparency is essential, because we have seen, being the research endeavor, it has to be unbiased and it has to be transparent. So though it is practical oriented, you will have to follow that also and align with the meaningful problems. Okay, the problems should not be universal truths that those are already being solved and accepted by people and so on. It has to be some real life situations. It can be related to some economic changes. It can be related to some climate changes. It can be related to some business practices. It can be related to some urban challenges and so on. So now you must have got the idea that when it comes to the pragmatism, there is certainly the value as far as DBA is concerned. So let us go quickly towards it. That when it comes to driving the DBA research, basically the values, pragmatism, and the real world, they have the impact on us. So basically, what are the DBA research values? And that is the reason why I have considered the other isms, positivism, interpretivism, and the critical research. So here, basically, uh, in the DBA research value, what are the values? That ethical AI use, that belief business should use AI ethically. Then employee well-being, that is commitment to the well-being of the people or the employee, which are during the AI transaction. Because when we do the vision translation to the technology adoption, at the time, all those things are going to be relevant. And that is why I am just discussing at this stage. Then organizational effectiveness. That is, there has to be a desire to improve the effectiveness. And social impact, that the concern for technological social impact, like for example, bias, that whether it is going to eat up my originality or whether it is going to my capabilities will be challenged and so on. So all those impacts or all those mm, worries or the concerns need to be addressed. So generally, pragmatic approach is being followed in DBA research. Why at all? Because it acknowledges the values openly. It focuses on what works to solve the practical problems using the most appropriate, effective methods. And basically, it is often grouped with critical approaches. So, the most common paradigm for TBA research is pragmatism. Okay, so when it comes to the relevance, because the practitioner scholar model, which we are going to have within, from you, is starts with the real business need or issue or the problem. Then it should have a clear practical significance. So whatever it is there, it should be clearly stated. And that is how it is going to be. Then stakeholders immediately understand the relevance. They should understand. That is how it is going to be. Then the research will generate the actionable points or actionable insights. And that is how it is going to be. So here at the end, we have to prioritize solving real world problems using the best possible strategies and the methods. And that is how it is going to be here. So, coming to our DBA research, what will be those core principles which are going to be used in the DBA research? Basically, there are 5 principles which are going to come under pragmatism and which are directly relevant to the DBA research. So, what are the core principles? It is anti-foundationalism. What is anti-foundationalism is flexibility. That one should have the strategy or one should have the one truthness methodology. Like, for example, here we are going to reject the one true methodology or one true correct stance. We won't be that rigid. And in that sense, we will be flexibility because when it comes to the practical applications, one has to go with that kind of strategy. So it embraces the all the methodological pluralism which are going to be there. So using whatever it works, that is going to give me the answer. And hence, I am saying here, when it comes to the DBA research, don't get trapped in qualitative versus quantitative debate. Use both if it is needed. not compulsory. Just try to understand the practicality, try to understand the depth or the applicability, and then go for it. Next principle is the consequentialism. So, what is here? Here, you are going to focus on, or you can judge the ideas by practical effects. So, like, what is the question? Here, we are going to answer that what practical difference does accepting this idea is going to make. If I am going to have the AI adoption for hospital management, or if I am going to have the AI adoption in IBD care or any kind of problem, then what practical difference is going to make it when you are going to accept this idea? So here I have just given the AI or Gen AI example. That is Gen AI itself intelligent? Because that debate is secondary. That because it is going to give you a response on any question which you are going to ask. So here basically you have to ask, or you have to go with the specific problem. And what is that specific problem? Can it solve my customer service problem effectively? So that is what I am focused on. That is what will be the consequences. So in that sense, your consequentialism is the second principle. And what is the third? As I have already stated, the context is very important. So when it comes to the contextualism, what is here? You are trying to recognize the knowledge and method which are going to fit into the specific context. Because particular method or particular um, strategy is accepted by one particular domain, that doesn't mean it is going to applicable to you also. So even if somebody suggests that when you are going to go with it, how you will have to confront that no, this type of theory or this type of methodology may not work for my research. I will give you one example of my own thing. When we are working on the learning analytics for visually challenged persons, and we were trying to devise a learning management system with learning analytics and so on. So when we collected the data was collected in batch of 2020 visually challenged people. We started working on it. Then suddenly, when we were working on the data, we had certain kind of attributes. So when we were trying to construct the instructions or the learning material for them and so on, and then we were taking the feedback. So at that time, I realized that whatever the construct which we were using, or whatever the attributes which we are using, for every learner, it has given me certain different kind of response or certain different kind of value. So we were really startled that here we have realized that I cannot have all those statistical approaches where I am going to have that all the data is going to follow a certain kind of values, or they are going to give me. So there I will be having the group dynamics, that whatever it works for group, I am going to adopt that kind of methods. And we know all the statistical methods are going to work for the group dynamics in a more proper way. But here, for every individual learner, the values were totally different. So we thought that, yeah, something is either is wrong with our collection method, or maybe there is a difference between every learner and so on. Then we had really taken the data from time to time. Almost 1,000 learners were inspected and so on. And then we came to the conclusion that I cannot have all those statistically based methodologies and so on. So then we said, okay, we have to give them the individualistic approach. Then what kind of individualistic approach is there? Then we started searching that if I want to uh, address the need of every individual candidate, every individual's example point, then I need to study what kind of approaches are there. Then we realize that yes, there are certain kind of models, like for example, the hidden Markov model or the Markov models are there, which are going to give me the individualistic approach. This is what I said about the contextualism. Because depending upon, because you are the boss, you are having the experiential knowledge, and you know that which kind of methodology or method or the application, practical method or practicality is going to work. So here, what works in one may not work in another. That is what I have to say. And here the pragmatic approach is study implementation strategies across contexts for success factors. And this is what I said, that from all those statistical probabilistic methods, we have come to the Markov methods or Markov models. And that is how we have. Then fourth aspect or the fourth principle is the fallibilism. What is fallibilism? Here, basically, the acceptance comes through the belief or the core philosophy that all knowledge is provisional, subject to revision. Because uh, today, whatever is given by GPT 1.0 or GPT 2.0 is going to be different from GPT 5.2. Okay, because it is directly related to AI, because it has been populated with the more knowledge. So with the version to version, with the uh, copy to copy, or for from code to code, it is going to be different. So here we accept that all knowledge in our AI or Gen AI research, all knowledge is provisional and subject to revision. And what is the mindset here? We are stay open to being wrong, update beliefs based on the evidence. And that is the core principle of the practical or the action research. When it comes to the relevance to the AI and Gen AI, how we are going to see that there are going to be rapid changes in the field. Research must accommodate evolving technology. As I said, even in AI, like when we talk about AI, as you will be completing your DBA, your AI is also going to change. Today, it is the experiential explainable AI, then the responsible AI. Next time, industry may talk about the frugal AI. Then we will have sovereign AI. Then we have the societal AI, agentic AI, and so on. So, with the inventions, with the time, the AI treatments are also going to change. So focus on the enduring principles. Core is not going to change, but there can be the knowledge which is associated with every evolution is going to change. And lastly, it is the action orientation. Now, I have already said that when it comes to the practical oriented research, it is always action oriented research. So, what is the situation you will be concentrating and what we should do about it? So, there has to be some actionable recommendation, or one should be able to see. So, all the experts in your committee, when you will be presenting your research proposal in front of them, they will be looking for the actionable recommendations, that what exactly you are trying to do and practically whether it is going to be applicable. So here the emphasis is on the research which should lead to action and the change. So what is a DBA mandate over here? Dissertation or your book or your business plan must provide actionable recommendations, and it should not be limited to the theoretical insights. And that is the major difference which we have seen earlier. But what is the difference between doing PhD or the conventional doctoral program PhD under some university, and what is the difference between doing the doctoral program in business administration under GGU? So having said about this, so we are almost done with the pragmatism. So I felt that initially itself if I tell you these kind of things, then as I said, I normally I have also gone through this process when I have completed my doctorate or business administration degrees. It has helped me immensely going towards it. So, having said about the pragmatism, the all those isms like positivism, interpretivism, critical research, and the pragmatism. So now it is clear, crystal clear, that all the researches which are going to come, it will be under pragmatism and they will be following this kind of principles. So the last P, okay, so this was the fifth P, right? Today we have started from the purpose, then we have the process also, participants, then we have the process, then we have the pragmatism, and the last sixth P is basically the research presentation. We have already talked about this. So again, let me not go into the details. Maybe in the course of your assignment preparation, we will be more discussing that how you can disseminate and explain the research in a particular manner, whether it is going to be a book or the dissertation or the business plan and so on. So your sixth P of the P of research is basically the research presentation. So here the first part of our research is over. Okay. So as I said, thanks for hearing because I felt that it is going to be slightly philosophical and I felt it is my responsibility when it comes to disseminating what is research or the what is the practical research is about. Fine. Now let us go towards the next. So I will pause for a second. I will have just a hot water so that I can have. So the next is basically the process, how it is going to be. And this is how it is going to be there. So basically, the flow and the components of the research process, how we are going to go about it. So as I said, please remind me last 10 minutes, I will be taking the question answers because it disturbs the flow and even the listening of other people. So I will just pause for a second and then we will go towards this flow and the component of the research process. So today I have just divided our master class into three components. First was I continued with the 6 P's of research we have completed. Now we will be going with what should be the flow of the research. And then the individual components we will be trying to study. And here also, we will be maybe today or tomorrow in the beginning, I will be giving you the comparison of the flow of the research, how it is going to be. As I said, uh, I will be giving you that comparison as well. Fine. So, as I said, we will be starting with the flow of the research process. Yeah. I hope I have not stretched your listening capacities by bombarding you with all those philosophical research or philosophical concepts. But as I said, I always used to wonder that why at all when I first time in 1990 when I started pursuing my PhD, I really wondered that why the degree is Doctor of Philosophy. If I'm going to do the doctorate in my own subject, then at all I should it should be called as PhD. And then I slowly started understanding that the entire endeavor of research or the process is going to be linked by the different kinds of philosophical constructs, and that is how it is going to be. So let us quickly see. Of course, everybody knows about it, but still, I'm going to touch upon all the steps of that flow or all the milestones of that flow when it comes to the research process. So generally, the research process starts with identifying the problem. So I have already received your some of you have already uh, given. But then, of course, those who were not present in the immersion program, if somebody can collect all those topics which you have, or topic presentations which you have done, or which topic you would like to do, if you can just pass on to me, or mail to me, or mail to the coordinator, he or she will direct it to me. Then it will be very good, so that when we will go forward, it will really help us. So first one is the identification of the problem. And it is for this reason you were asked to give the topic presentation. Okay, so the topic proposal, which is going to go to it. So understanding is that in this topic proposal, there is going to be changes, there is going to be the evolution, or there is going to be, uh, it is because it is going to be the evolutionary process, and it is going to be, the treatment is going to be more mature as you go from one step to another. So what is that? Once first is the identify the problems, then secondly it is the research question, the third stage is you are trying to understand what is the landscape, or what is the literature, what literature says related to this problem. Then you are going to choose the methodology. Once you have chosen the methodology, that means whether you will be able to use the qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methodology, then you will start the collecting the data, then you will analyze the data, then you will be interpreting the results, and then you will be coming to the conclusion. So this is the normal process of any dissertation or any program, doctoral program, which comes under any university. Now, let us start with the first stage, that problem identification and the formulation. So, basically, what it involves identifying a gap in knowledge or the practices. Then, it is going to be defining the problem clearly, and then its need, importance, and the significance. Why at all you have gone with the problem? Why at all? Because one has to be absolutely clear in the beginning itself, that why at all I am going to target it. Because when you are presenting the things to others, it will give you the confidence and that authoritative control over your subject or the topic which you are going to present it. So the AI or Gen AI context is problems often emerge from technology limitations. Then there can be some implementation challenges. There can be some ethical concerns. There can be some regulatory requirements, and there can be some performance issues are there. So generally, when it comes to doing the DBA or doctoral program in business administration, with concentration on AI and GenAI, generally there are five. I have just uh, compiled it, that the problems they are going to often emerge from this five concerns or five domains, and that is how we are going to do it. So when it comes to the problem identification, how we are going to work on it. So basically, let us first try to understand what exactly is a research problem about. You may have identified the topic, but then it may require certain kind of polishing, or it may have to do certain kind of fine tuning when it comes to presenting as the research proposal. So what is basically a research problem? So scientifically, or as a theoretically, or when it comes to be under research degree, then what is a research problem? It is a clearly articulated gap between what is going to exist, what should exist. Plus, it should be grounded in practices because ours is a practical research or practically oriented research. It should be justified by certain kind of foundational theories. There will be some foundational theories, some problems which are associated with, and lastly, it has to be supported by the evidence. So, in short, basically, research problem is going to comprise of these kind of qualities. So, it should be a clearly articulated, stated gap between what exists, what should exist. It should be grounded in practice because there has to be some grounding theory. So, generally, because ontology knowledge comes from it emerges out of the grounding theories. Therefore, it should be grounded in practice. Then it should be justified by certain foundational theories, which will give you a solid foundation for your research problem and supported by the evidence. So, your research outcome or your research option, thesis option, dissertation option, thesis option can be a dissertation or can be a book and can be a business problem. But surely it is going to have this kind of research problem. So, in the context of AI and emerging technologies, as I have already said, they are going to emerge from these kind of areas. So, what is how we are going to align the problem with DBA ethos? How we are going to do it? That select problem which is significant to practice, theoretically anchored and feasible with available data and access. So, this is how one has to do it. So, always select a problem which is significant to the practice, whether it is theoretically anchored and feasible with available data and the access. And when I say data and access is the time constraint also comes in there. So the DBA research problems must lie at the intersection of AI, business value, and the societal or the organizational impact. And that is how it is going to come with that kind of practical solution. So this kind of structure always helps convert ideas into the research problem. So quickly we will see some examples. But prior to that examples, let me just give you the list of tasks which is been expected from the DBA students. So what is those tasks which are being expected from the DBA student? That always convert an industry complaint into a researchable problem. Now, how you are going to do that? Here, your experiential knowledge is going to work because you are in the system or the problem which you have considered. You have already looking or observing certain kind of problems or complaints or issues, and that is how you have gathered your opinion. Then distinguish managerial symptoms from the research problems. That is extremely essential because when you are working at the CXO level or as a senior executive or senior leader, generally I found that there is a mix up of the managerial challenges or symptoms from the research problems. Identify who is going to be affected and why exactly it is going to matter. Try to map the problem to AI, data, and the decision layers. Articulate the problem in 3 to 5 precise statements so that why I'm saying 3 to 5 precise statements because ultimately when you will be trying to go towards your original problem statement to the achievable or feasible problem statement, it will help you. Justify the problem using theory and evidence, that is foundational theory and support, evidence support. Then identify the gaps in existing AI knowledge or the applications. Then distinguish between practical problems and the research problem. Sometimes what happens, there is again a mix-up in the long or the major research project which is undertaken But when it comes to the research and dissemination, or when it comes to the dissemination as a research problem, we generally mix up, or we generally we are being trapped when it comes to the solving the practical problems. Ensure problems are bounded. Now, bounded in the sense they are going to be solved in the given time limit, or you will be proposing the solution or the model or the prototype or the theory or the framework in the stipulated time. So ensure problems are bounded and feasible within the DBA scope. Consider ethical, technical, and business dimensions and align with emerging technology trends and the business needs. So if you follow these, this is the task list which I have considered, then obviously you will come out with my, take it from me, my experience from the earlier cohorts is if it is being followed, then you come out with a perfect research problem. And that is how you are going to address it. So, lastly, move from broad AI interest to precise researchable problem. Like, for example, I am working on Gen AI implementation in HR. So it is very general, right? Which aspect of HR? Then you can design the research problem as how reliably can Gen AI summarize performance reviews without amplifying the rater bias. So basically, this is how it is you are trying to move from the broad research problem to the precise research problem. We are going to consider different examples. So here, learning through examples is quite basically it works because that is how you are able to understand. And it should be grounded in gaps that we have already seen, issues, tensions, or contradictions in practice and the literature. So it has to be practical. It has to be grassroots. It has to, what you could say, it should come out of the grounded. It should be grounded in gaps, issues, problems, tensions, or coordinations in the practice and literature. So having put before you, let us see quickly, as I said, how from broad problem one can go towards the refined problems. So I have just put before you some examples that how it is going to be. Already I have given you the example of Gen AI in research. So generally, when we are we start with the research, we are really ambitious. And because of the ambitiousness, we tend to go with the very broad problem. And then we realize that, oh, I won't be able to perform this in 18 months, or maybe with the limited resources, or the time constraint, I won't be able to do it. So let us see examples of broad problem, how it can go towards the refined problem. So what is the broad problem? AI-based hiring tools may not be trusted by employees. So this is the broad problem. Now, what is the refined problem? How does transparency in AI-driven recruitment decision system influences employee trust in multinational IT organizations? So here you can replace your own organization name by it. Then second example, I have just taken AI adoption in any organization. So organizations struggle to adopt AI successfully, like in case of SMEs or MSMEs. It may not be that applicable or that fast or that speedy, which happens in the large organization. So, what is the refined problem? What leadership competencies influence successful adoption of Gen AI in mid-size financial service organizations? So, this can be a refined problem. So, you are trying to, instead of just talking about the organizations to a large extent, you can go towards it. Then the next is AI-enabled learning assistants. So AI learning assistants do not always improve student learning outcomes. What will be the refined problem? How does the use of AI-enabled learning assistants affect the self-regulated learning behaviors among IT professionals enrolled in online certification programs. So, see that is how you are going to move towards a focus area. Similarly, AI in healthcare. So, AI diagnostic systems face implementation challenges in hospitals. So, this is again a broad problem. So, what can be the refined? What organizational and regulatory factors affect the adoption of AI based diagnostic decision support systems in public hospitals in a particular country? So, that is how it is going to happen. Okay. So, I have just considered one aspect and I have tried to give you the refined problem. Okay. You can have certain other aspect in your mind. Accordingly, you can consider formulating your refined problem statement. Lastly, it is the sustainability and AI. So organizations struggle to measure sustainability impact. So what will be the refined problem? How can AI driven ESG analytics improve carbon footprints reporting accuracy in manufacturing supply chain? So here, as I said, that in supply chain SCM, how the organizations are going to struggle to measure the sustainability impact. So this is how now you must have got the idea. When I said that when we are doing our research, it happens with everybody. It happens with me. It can happen. It will happen with you or anybody who starts with the research. It is going to happen that way. So basically, you will always start with a broad problem, which I have already given you, and then you will be zeroing down to the refined problem. So here, basically, how your broad problem is going to be going towards a refined problem, the journey is going to be this. So this is your own learning or the teaching to yourself is going to happen. That as per the context, your problem, broad problem is going to be focusing. Then what can be the dependent and independent variables? What are the factors which are going to be considered? Then what should be the sample size or the population which you will be considering? And then it is going to give you the outcome. And that is how it will be. So if you go with this structure or this insight, generally when you are trying to, we know now the frugal AI has already come into existence. All the industries are talking about it. So the structure is going to help convert ideas into the researchable problem. And it is going to prevent the bias also. These were the examples. Actually, I was planning to take some dim exercises, but for the want of time, because generally, but then you can take it like you can have your own questions, own problems also. So next is how you can derive a particular research problem from a particular domain or from a particular system or for a particular organization or from a particular institution, whatever it is going to be. So let us see quickly the example. As I said, we will be learning the process of identifying the problem and or the formulation of a problem through examples instead of uh, telling all the characteristics and so on. I felt if I am able to take the examples, that will work faster. So here, how to derive the research problem. So suppose I have taken the recruitment system or the HR. Why I have taken this? Because this problem we have already taken in some. So AI bias in recruitment system or HR. So what is in the discussions or in the meetings of the organization, it has been felt that their AI powered recruitment system shows gender bias in screening resumes for technical positions, right? So, this was generally in the organization, the problem emerges when there are discussions, there are meetings, There are brainstorming sessions are happening, and or internal meetings or internal discussions are going to happen. So this was the situation. Now, what will be the research problem? That what factors contribute to the algorithmic bias in AI recruitment tool, and how can organizations design bias mitigation framework? So this is going to be directly targeting the problem. So what was in the discussion? The situations or the issues which have been reported by the CXOs, or which has been felt by the HR heads or system heads and so on. So the Gen AI tool was deployed, but it has failed to align output with organizational culture. That was the problem. So all those problems, if you see carefully, all the bullet points which I have written over here, they have given rise to a research problem. Like, for example, Gen AI based recruitment screening tool shows lower diversity in shortlisted candidate versus human screening, because already the human screening process was going on. So naturally, people will compare in whatever the new adoptions have done, and they will naturally would like to verify that whatever the human selection, whether it matches with the AI selection. Then Gen AI deployed. So here we have already mentioned. Okay. So this is how in the meetings or in the discussions which emerges, and then it tries to convert into the research problem. Next is Gen AI adoption barriers in MSMEs or SMEs or maybe Fortune 500 companies. So, again, that in the discussions, it was felt that small and medium enterprises are struggling to adopt the Gen AI despite the potential benefits. So organizations across all those this they want to deploy Gen AI tool for drafting reports or getting decision support or forecasting or the customer interaction or HR screening, etc., etc. Right. So now for the Gen AI adoption, what is the research problem which is emerging out of it? What organization, technical and financial barriers prevent SME adoption of Gen AI, and what implementation frameworks can facilitate successful integration? Now, how this case or how this problem is different from the earlier one. Now, here there was a single point of the problem, that algorithmic bias, that how you can. Here, I have given you two questions. That's why I said a single problem. You can initially start with, instead of having zero down, you can do your homework and you can start with two or more research questions. Why at all? Because as you are going to proceed with your methodology, with your literature review, with your data collection, and so you are going to realize that which research question or which research problem is answerable. And that is how it is going to be. So here you must have observed I have given two problem statements, that what organizational, technical, and financial barriers prevent SME adoption of Gen AI, and secondly, what implementation frameworks can facilitate successful integration. So these are basically the problem statements. So now, so let us see the second example. Like for
Ma'am,
example, yes.
I'm sorry. Mind go have some water. I think your voice is a little bit choking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Just take a break. I mean,
That's.
no problem.
No,
Thanks.
it was a. I mean, the now the voice is coming, but
Yeah,
earlier in the morning my voice was not coming. I said, "What I'm going to do?" But it has come.
yeah. You take it easy, ma'am. Yeah, you can go otherwise.
Thank you
No
so
problem.
much. Thanks.
No problem.
So the next one is basically the AI explainability in healthcare. So here again, there will be some discussions. And there will be the healthcare providers are not able to explain AI diagnostic recommendations to patients. And because of that, patients or the customers are little apprehensive about accepting the AI diagnostic recommendations. So now, okay, here it is going to be, there can be some small size companies, some medium size, or some big size, and so on. So again, the requirement is going to be the same, and that is how it is going to be. But here in explainability, now we know that we are going to choose a particular nature of AI. And what is that? XAI. So, what is that explainable AI framework? So, how can explainable AI frameworks be designed to meet clinical decision making requirements while maintaining patient trust and regulatory compliances? So, this becomes your research problem. So, it can be related to any area. Okay, it can be insurance claims which are coming from the healthcare. So it can be, I mean, it can be any vertical which can be addressed to it. So generally, as I said, the internal discussions or certain kind of uh, deliberations, certain kind of brainstorming is going to come. Now, when it comes to again AI explainability in, suppose I am taking the particular aspect of AI based clinical decision support system. Okay. So, if we are going to uh, consider in healthcare, then how they are going to go up with it. So, here basically, hospitals they deploy AI based clinical decision support system. Basically, for what purpose? Say, for example, it is for radiology image interpretation. It is for cancer risk prediction or the early sepsis detection. So they have published validations. Then they have already checked or show high model accuracy. It is satisfying the sensitivity. Then even the AURC has been also tackled. However, what was the observation? Clinicians have underutilized or override the AI recommendation. So this is a specific problem. So having said about this, uh, these were the problems. Okay. So what were the observed symptoms? Doctors still rely on personal judgment instead of AI outputs. And they are not just accepting the AI based clinical decision support system. Then AI recommendations are reviewed late or ignored. So they just keep it that though the AI recommendations are being given, they are not seen it regularly. Then AI alerts are perceived as workflow interruptions. Though, so if constantly the alerts are coming, then it is basically the seen as the disturbance. Instead of seeing it as a collaboration, it is seen as a disruption. Now, how the underlying research problem is being identified. Despite demonstrably high predictive accuracy, healthcare AI systems fail to achieve sustained clinical adoption due to misalignment with clinical trust, clinicians' trust, accountability, and workflow integration. So here you will see, there are three actually problems, issues which are being taken up. So it is going to be little ambitious, right? Though this is a research problem, it is quite exhaustive. And whether you will be able to address the misalignment with clinicians' trust and accountability together, or accountability and workflow integration together, or misalignment with clinicians, trust, and workflow integration. How you are going to uh, group them and how you are going to understand. So, why this is a research problem from the DBA lens, how it is going to be? It is not a technical failure because it is giving very high prediction accuracy. But there is a gap. Where is a gap? There is a human AI organizational gap is there. And naturally, because of that, it is going to affect the ROI and naturally the patient outcomes and the operational efficiency. Now, this because we have faced this kind of situation. Let me tell you, there was a particular patient, and a particular patient was being treated for a particular disease. Let me not disclose that disease because it's a real case which has happened in one of the hospitals. So he was being treated continuously. It was a neurodegenerative disease, and that problem has come to us. And it was like 13 years that particular patient was being treated by doctors in a particular manner. Then, when the system or more sophisticated tests were given, they have doctors have realized because there was no improvement in the patient condition and it was the new neurodegenerative problems. Naturally, it was affecting the family of that particular patient. So that family approached to the different doctor or a different assistants that there is no change whatsoever, and year after year we are trying to keep, and almost the person has been almost in a vegetative state and so on. Then they have taken a particular this assistance. Now what was happening over here is the disease, neurodegenerative disease, with which that particular patient was being diagnosed, that was never challenged because it was an age old neurodegenerative disease like uh, paralysis or Alzheimer or any kind of disease of that sort. Now, what was happening is maybe because of constantly seeing that patient, the family members felt that we felt something is wrong, something is not going in the right direction. So now they have approached this, and to their surprise, on the second opinion, because it was 13 years back, it was being diagnosed with a particular disease. Now the doctors, they said, because of all those sophisticated tests and whatever the symptoms and so on, they said this person is not suffering from this neurodegenerative disease, but he is suffering from a particular vertical, or it is a separate vertical from that neurodegenerative this. So we need to make the change. And then the person with that change treatment, it survived for the next 7 years. So this was a very practical case in front of us. So this has created us that yes, I mean, sometimes the AI, we don't afford to set aside the sophisticated, let me not say AI recommendations. So we started saying that at least you try to see whatever the results are there and whatever this is there. So we will be able to realize it. And that is how person, of course, the person was about, it was certain that he is going to die because that was a fatal disease. And neurodegenerative diseases are basically gradually, progressively, they come to a vegetative or non-functional state and then they die. So everybody knows this. But then at least making the life better for that can be the objective. So this is what I was saying, that the observed symptoms And the sophisticated recommendations or the alerts should not be perceived as a workflow intervention. Fortunately for them, where they have approached the other team of doctors, they started realizing. So here it is. This is what I mean by when I say it affects ROI, patient outcomes, and the operational efficiency. It involves governance, responsibility, and the decision ownership. So, here, when it comes to the AI based clinical decision support system in healthcare, if any of you, because I have seen in last 5 cohorts, many of the problems they are coming from the healthcare domain. I have discussed this case in detail. Okay, so now having discussed these three, 4 areas, now let us see the suitability of the research problem when it comes to the DBA research. So basically, here, what is the relevance? When you are taking up the book option, the chapter on human acceptance barriers in healthcare AI can make the difference. Or if you are considering a business plan option, then clinician centric explainable AI platform can be the result of the business plan option. So this is the relevance. Now, as I said, let us see the suitability, the research problem suitability from the research angle or suitability in terms of the DBA research angle. So, like as I said, what is the suitability for the DBA from the research angle or DBA angle point of view? AI governance and workflow redesign or operational resilience in healthcare systems, or AI driven complexity versus value creation, and the human factors engineering. So basically, if the result is clinicians underutilize or override the AI recommendation, then more or less it will be a governance and workflow design kind of problem. So one has to go via this. So what will be the relevance when it comes to the book option? The as I have already said it. So what will be the takeaway for DBA scholars? A strong research problem in healthcare AI is rarely about accuracy. It is about trust. It is about integration. It is about accountability. It is about workflow. And it is about the impact. So, having said, so this is how it is going to be there. So, that was the healthcare related issues. Okay, let me pause for a second. I will just bring the water. Yeah. Now, generally, in legal technology or legal or in supply chain optimization, how it is going to work. So let us see, or maybe in marketing or any other domain, how it is going to work. So let us see, like the problem of LLM hallucination in legal tech. So generally, what was the observation? The law firms using LLMs for document analysis, they are facing the accuracy concerns. I think this is one of the problem which is being taken by, I think, cohort 5. Somebody has taken the problem in cohort 5. So what was the research problem? What validation mechanisms can minimize hallucination risks in legal AI applications while maintaining operational efficiency? So this is What one problem? So I'm just putting before you the examples of different domains which can fit under our DBA research, or it can fit under DBA problems. Then AI-driven supply chain. The global manufacturers struggle with AI integration in supply chain systems. Okay, so basically, uh, it is going to be different from the healthcare AI as well as the clinical workflow over here. Okay, so you will have to interpret when you are going to put the relevance. So here, instead of instead of the ethical and so on, maybe here the operational paradoxes, which are going to have a particular, which are different from healthcare, it is going to be over here. When it comes to the business plan option, then the again, there is going to be, if it is going to be the supply chain, it will be, instead of taking the intelligent alert prioritization, it can be slightly different from this. So here, as I said, when there is going to be the option of the business plan option is going to be taken up. So this is how it is going to work on it. Then here also the Gen AI ethics in marketing and any other domain, that marketing departments face ethical dilemmas using Gen AI or the content creation. So your research problem will be addressing that kind of area. So this is how it is going to be. So now, having said about all the research problems, how they are trying to emerge from the different particular discussions or observations year after year, what are the ways in which we can construct the research problem? There are 6 ways of formulating or forming the research problem. So, as I said, from observation to problem, when you are trying to move from observation to problem, what was your observation? Our company's AI chatbot frequently provides incorrect information. So, what can be the research problem? What factors contribute to the response accuracy degradation in enterprise chatbots, and how can continuous learning frameworks is going to improve its performance over time? So this is typically the first way, that from you have been observing the things, and year after year or days after days or months after months, it has been reported something, and that is how it is going to be there. So now the next way is the gap identification. What is the gap identification? That whatever the review is being carried out, we know the second or the third stage of doing the research is review of the literature. So the literature review findings show that AI adoption models are there, but they lack focus on emerging markets. So, what can be the research problem? How do institutional, cultural, and infrastructural factors are going to shape AI adoption patterns in emerging market contexts compared to the developed economies? And that is how it is going to be. So, as I said, from the your literature review or from your initial information gathering, you are going to realize what is the gap. After the gap identification, you can arrive at the research problem. So this is the second way. What is the third way? Third way is practical to research translation. So what is the business problem? We need to reduce customer service cost. So there was practical problem. Okay. And maybe the vision is being, like, for example, Amazon, once upon a time, they have said that they would like to serve the customer in best possible way. And then they have come out with the online this, and they started giving all sort of services through Amazon. So there was a vision. Vision is catering to the customer needs. So here also there can be a practical, there can be a vision of any organization, and that vision gives you the requirements that okay, to complete or to stick with this vision or to go with this vision and mission, what will be the business requirements. From these business requirements, what will be the technology requirements will be there. And through this business requirement, what will be the how the technology adoptions are going to come. So this becomes a practical path. So for our practical applicable research, it is going to be going from practical to research translation. So what will be the research problem? How does institutional, I think this is being copied wrongly. I'm sorry for that. So here, what can be the research problem? That how does the organizations are going to reduce the customer service cost by making use of AI adoption or by adopting the technology, a particular technology or a particular AI intervention. So I have already explained, and that is how it is going to be. I will correct it. I have just noted down this is wrongly being done. Fine. Now the next is the train-based problem. What is the train-based observation? With GPT-4 and other LLMs gaining prominence, organizations face strategy questions. So, what will be the research problem? What strategic decision making framework enable organizations to evaluate and select appropriate LLMs for domain specific applications? Maybe the answer will be we will be having our own short language model or specific language model. So from LLM, we may have to move to the towards the SLMs. So here, what will be the research problem? That what strategic decision making framework is going to enable organizations to evaluate and select appropriate LLMs for domain specific applications. What is the fifth way? The interdisciplinary problem. So basically, you want to bridge the gap between AI and the organizational behavior. So, what can be the problem? What do AI augmented decision making systems are going to affect the managerial cognitive process, decision quality, and operational cost structure in B2B context? So, this is the fifth way. What will be the sixth way? That again, it can be train based. Why it is train based? That it is going to be the problem combining ethics and technology. So here, basically, because whether it is related to AI, the ethical AI or the ethics is going to get. So what governance mechanism can organizations implement to ensure responsible AI development? So these are the ways. Okay. So majorly what I realize that these are the ways in which it is going to occur. So lastly, because we were trying to answer or the address that how the research problem is going to be addressed. Now, as usual, we will see what will be the importance for the DBA scholars or what how it is going to be dissertation. It is already there will be a path which is being followed. Okay. But then when it comes to the book option, when it comes to the business plan option, how one should go about it and how exactly. Because in your book and the business plan, you won't be writing my research problem is so and so. Okay. Or my research question, research objective is so and so. You may have to write it indirectly. But whatever your research, whatever your rigorous efforts which are being conducted, it may be pushed to the appendix that this is my homework, which I have done it. Like I am giving you the example. Like 2 days back itself, I was yeah, trying to see the presentation of one of the students. So when we guided, so it was like we have already communicated that how. So beautifully, I found that the student has pushed all those research questions, gaps, objectives to the appendix, and whatever the summarization, whatever the insights from that it was kept in a narrative style in there in his slides. Even for business plan option also happened that. So that has basically, I thought that let me tell for the next cohorts right in the beginning that when you are trying to write the research problem, how it should go about it. So for the book option and for the business plan option, because for the thesis as a dissertation, there is a set practice. There is already a standardized process which is being there. Okay. So when it comes to the book option, what your research problem should do? Your research problem should foreground a clearly theorized gap and contribute to scholarly debates. Like, for example, algorithmic fairness or the technology acceptance or AI capability building. So this is just the example, but it should foreground a clearly theorized gap and which can contribute, or it should not happen that it is just a particular small problem which is being taken and it is being presented as a research problem. Second is identification of your research problem must demonstrate clear theoretical contribution potential. That how, however small it is, how it is going to contribute to the world body of knowledge. So, how it is going to be done. Then your problem should address gaps in existing literature while maintaining the practical relevance. It should also generate the publishable research contributing to AI management theory, organizational AI adoption theory. Like, for example, in one or the particular presentation, the bounded rationality theory was presented by a particular student. This is what I mean by the foundational theory, because the problem or the research problem was related to the strategic decisions. He has chosen to give some AI management theories. And in that, he had come up with the bounded rationality theory. And he could justify that why at all he has chosen that as his foundational theory. Then, lastly, the research problem should be sophisticated enough to support 3 to 4 publishable chapters or the papers. Of course, this is going to be little ambitious, but why I'm saying that this will be the first instance that before your book goes to publication, how the you will get the response or the appreciation or the criticism, whatever it is, suggestions from people. And this is what I'm trying to propose. So this is about the caution. What about the business plan? Here, your research problem should emphasize the actionable business challenge with clear commercial applications, which must lead to certain kind of achievable outcomes. It should give implementable solutions, frameworks, or tools which are going to create the tangible business value. It should connect directly to a concrete organizational pain point. It should be framed so findings can drive again and achievable outcomes. Implementable AI deployment roadmap. It should give for the choice or the research problem chosen should be such that your business plan can directly address the and address the problem, and it should ensure the research whatever the it is going to be, it should inform the product development, service design, or strategic positioning. So whether it is book option or whether it is going to be the business plan, this is how it is going to be working on it. So this was the first part, or the second part, you can say, that how the uh, research problem we are going to be. Because when I have presented the research process with you, it has gone about it. So I will pause for a second, and I think today we may be able to go towards this. Okay. So, okay, about the problem, the PPTs have not been posted on the portal, only the YouTube links. Okay. Can the details of the two individual assignment be sent, please? Okay. I have well taken. I will be. Yeah. It should be doable. My understanding. Yeah. Correct. Correct. It is. Okay. So I think we will take again a break in between. I will have my cup of coffee also. So we will pause for few minutes and then again we will join. Okay. So let us pause for 1 or 2 seconds, because next we will be starting with the next milestone. Okay. So let me pause for a second. Yeah. So I think, as I said, So, okay. So, the next stage of our research is basically formulating the research question. So, we have considered that a broader research problem can have, or whatever the research problem are being constructed, it can have 3 to 5 uh, sub problems which are being considered. So, naturally, when we are considering the research problem, then naturally the research questions they emerge. How they emerge? Because of the intersection of the research problems. Then, on the other hand, there is going to be a literature gap and the existing frameworks or theoretical concepts are existing. So, generally, research questions they emerge from their intersection. And when it comes to doing the research, they are answered through empirical investigation. And that is how we are going to advance our understanding. Now, in AI research, research question, they often explore relationships. So you are trying to identify the correlation. Okay, I'm going to take some examples so that it will be clear to you that the efficiency and AI adoption. So, what is the relationship between them? So, it is the relationship. Then, due to the experiment, what is your experiences? So, in AI, generally, the research question often explore relationship experiences and the processes. So, how you are going to explore? Generally, the strong research question is going to guide the methodology selection and whatever the data analysis strategies which you are going to adopt. So, having said about this, let us see quickly what are the research question considerations from our DBA lens or DBA angle. So, the research question considerations. What are the tasks which are expected? First one is align the research questions directly, directly with research objectives. Right? Qualitative and quantitative research questions. Avoid solution driven questions. Distinguish between research questions, research objectives, and research hypothesis. So, again, I have found, like in one of the uh, research defense, we had to point out to the student that this is not your research objective, it is your research question. Or whatever you have written, your research question is not a question, it is basically objective or whatever you have presented as a research hypothesis is not your basically hypothesis, but it is an objective. So it happens basically when we think of presenting something. And as I said, while the presentation is going on, we want to be little more elaborate in our approach. So here, this this is the caution. Then use appropriate question type. There are three types of questions are there: exploratory, explanatory, and descriptive. So depending upon your approach, you will be trying to frame the research question. So generally, when the research question also has its own terms which are being used, like for example, if a question starts with what, how, then it is going to be exploratory. If it is why, then it will be explanatory. And to what extent, that means it is going to be descriptive. So ensure questions are specific enough to be answerable, but broad enough to be significant. Consider sub questions that break down the complex main questions to sub questions. I am going to take some examples. Rather, here I wanted to give you the exercise, but then I felt today I don't know whether I will be able to uh, do the discussion. That's why I have just given you the examples. Okay. Ensure theoretical grounding questions should advance the conceptual understanding. So, why it matters along with the dissertation, why it matters for the book? In the book, it is going to showcase the scholarly discourse in your treatment of the subject or the topic which you have chosen. Similarly, in business plan, it is going to define the validation criteria. So, uh, see, every research component has its own relevance. Where, so, what can be the option of the output of your thesis? Whether it is going to be the dissertation, whether it is going to be the book, or whether it is going to be business plan. There is a certain kind of relevance is attached to it. And as I said, maybe in your final book or in your final business plan, all the research problem, statement, or research question, they will be pushed to the appendix, but then committee will be interested in knowing the rigor, the process which you have followed in order to arrive at particular problem, specific, achievable, feasible, targetable problem. So, having said about the research question, let us do certain kind of exercise where there will be main question. Rather, I wanted to have this kind of dim exercise, but I said, let me give it. So, now the research question example. So, what is the research question example? How does GenAI explainability influence managerial trust? Second question, in some other technical subject, what socio-technological factors hinder AI adoption? Now I have chosen purposely the how and what, just to make you realize that whether it is going to be explanatory, whether it is going to be exploratory, and so on. So, how do AI ethics affect organizational culture? What capabilities mediate AI ROI? At present, this mediate word may not be little known to you, but once we start with the variables, that what are the moderating variables, what are the mediating variables. It will be clear to you. Then, how do leaders cognitively adopt to Gen AI? How does regulation reshape the AI governance? So, typically, in AI adoption barrier research, what can be the main research question? What organizational factors influence the successful adoption of AI technologies in manufacturing SMEs? So, what can be the broken subquestions? They can be, how do organizational cultural dimension affect AI adoption decisions? Then, what role does top management support play in, in overcoming AI adoption barriers? And lastly, to what extent do resource constraints moderate the relationship between perceived AI benefits and the adoption intention? So, here, what is there? It has included both exploratory and the explanatory question. Okay. So, this is how it works. Then, similarly, Gen AI trust mechanism. So, the main research question is, how do different explainability mechanisms influence user trust in Gen AI systems? So, what will be the sub research question? What dimensions of explainability are most valued by different user groups? How does the transparency complexity trade off affect trust information, trust formation? And lastly, why, why do some explanation types increase trust while others decrease it? So, here also you will find both explanatory and explanatory is weak. Okay. So, similarly, I have given some questions. You can go through it. And I have tried to put all types of verbs or what you can say, interrogatory words which are going to be used. So you can just go through it. I pause for a second. So there is a LLM business value creation. Then, so this is how your questions will be arranged. So generally, my experience is through the main question, the sub questions are derived. So generally, they give the necessary generation foundation for the sub questions as shown in this slide. So you can just go through it.
Ma'am, I think you have a real bad throat. Please take rest. Kal kar
Yeah,
lenge.
yeah.
We'll do it
No,
tomorrow.
no, I will just complete it because we have
There's no
very
point
few limited
stretching
patients.
beyond this. I think you should take rest, ma'am. We'll
Yeah,
whatever is left for 5-10 minutes, we'll extend tomorrow and finish it.
yeah.
Please.
Yeah,
I
that's
You're
true.
barely able to
Yeah.
speak, ma'am.
It doesn't look good as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
uh,
Please.
yeah. You
Okay.
can take a rest. I guess you're getting throat infection. Maybe AI is telling you to take a medication,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. I will do the gargling. I will maybe
But
tomorrow evening.
uh,
It will be better. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
yeah,
So
you can send the PPT. We can read through. If you have a question, we can send it to you, and that would be okay.
yes,
You can
yes.
respond through
I
the
will.
text as well.
Yeah, yeah. I will be doing that. I will
Yeah,
be doing.
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. So thank you for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.